Hi guys, welcome to this sports psychology screencast on confidence and self-efficacy in sports performance. So what we need to be looking at is what's in front of you. This is specification. This screencast we're going to be going through definition of sports confidence, okay, not self-efficacy. So definition of sports confidence, the impact of sports confidence on performance, participation, self-esteem, and then we're going to be looking at Veely's model of sports confidence. The next screencast we'll look at the definition of self-efficacy and then Bandora's theory of self-efficacy. Okay, so typical exam question with regards to Veely's model of sports confidence. We're just going to look at this last one down here. So this is a 6-marker. Figure 1 illustrates Veely's model of sports confidence. Explain Veely's model of sports confidence. Obviously, it's there in front of you. Now, the past couple of exam questions on confidence does tend to actually show the model itself. So it's not something that you're going to have to truly and remember and annotate from scratch. However, it is really important that we do kind of understand what it is, because these arrows here, they kind of show you the outcome of the model. But we're going to go through that in this screencast. First of all, definition of sports confidence. So sports confidence is simply having the self-belief of your own ability to be successful in sport. Okay, so self-belief an individual has in their ability to be successful in sports. The more self-belief you have, the more you're potentially going to perform better, the more you're going to perform, i.e. the more you're going to want to take part, so participation will increase, as well as your self-esteem. So what we need to look at is the impact of sports confidence on performance, participation and self-esteem. There was an exam question on this. It was analyse the impact of sports confidence on performance, participation, self-esteem. Analyse means we have to look at both the positives and negatives. With regards to the information you're going to get now, this was literally straight from the mark scheme. So first of all, what impact does sports confidence have on performance? Well, it doesn't get much easier than this. High sports confidence will lead to high motivation and thus high performance. Okay, so high sports confidence will lead to high motivation and therefore high performance. So that is the impact of sport confidence on performance. However, low sports confidence will lead to low motivation and thus low performance. If we look at participation now, we start this all the time with high sports confidence or low sports confidence. So to begin with, high sports confidence will lead to increased participation due to approach behaviour. Approach behaviour, just approaching the situation, wanting to actually take part, for example. If you have high sports confidence, the more likely you are going to want to participate due to this approach behaviour. Conversely, if you have low sports confidence, this will lead to low participation due to avoidance behaviour. You're not going to want to take part. You're going to want to avoid that situation. Okay, so low sports confidence, so low self-belief, will lead to low participation due to avoidance behaviour. Finally, self-esteem. Well, if we have high sports confidence, we're going to have higher self-esteem. It's going to lead to high self-esteem, and this will due to internal attributions for success, i.e. our ability, internal stable, our ability. If we say we won due to our ability, it's going to increase our confidence, which is going to increase our self-esteem. In contrast to that, low sports confidence will lead to low self-esteem, and this will be due to internal attributions for failure. So saying the reason you lost was due to your ability. So I lost today because I was not good enough. That really will drop your sports confidence and therefore lead to low self-esteem. So that is confidence, self-efficacy in sport in terms of the impact of sports confidence on performance, participation, self-esteem. As I said, this is literally straight from the mark scheme with regards to analyse the impacts, analyse advantages, disadvantages, or high sports confidence will lead to, low sports confidence will lead to. Make sure you have very good key questions on that. So that's the definition of sports confidence and the impact of sports confidence on those following 3 things. What we're going to be looking at now is Veely's model of sports confidence. Now, before I actually get up the information you need, I am going to quickly talk about this, okay? It is kind of like a hierarchical model that kind of works with each other. Sporting context, okay, this can be anything. This could be a pass in football, a free kick in football. We are going to use a concrete example of a penalty in football. So the sporting context is simply the skill that's going to be undertaken, the skill in that current situation. So sporting context for this now is going to be a penalty in football. Now, Veely's model shows that every sports person or athlete has an existing level of sports confidence. This is straight trait sport confidence. Okay, so this model suggests that everyone has a level of trait sports confidence, as well as a level of competitive orientation, i.e. their innate predisposition or innate, stable, enduring predisposition to confidence in sport. Competitive orientation is essentially your willingness or desire to be competitive. For example, volunteering to take a penalty would be competitive orientation. Now, these two right here directly influence our state sports confidence. If we have high trait sports confidence, high competitive orientation, we're going to have high state sports confidence, i.e. this situation-specific sports confidence. Now, if these are high, we now have behavioural response. Behavioural response is simply the actual action that is taking place. So, for example, with a penalty, the behavioural response would be simply how effective you are at taking the penalty, i.e. your technique or your success rate within taking the penalty. And then finally, the subjective perceptions of the outcomes is simply your feelings of satisfaction if you score or your feelings of disappointment if you miss, for example. So if you score, you'd get feelings of satisfaction, and that would be your subjective perceptions of the outcome, i.e. oh, I scored, I'm therefore satisfied. Now this directly has an impact on our trait sport confidence and competitive orientation. As you can see from the arrows, they clearly suggest that they kind of interact with each other. For example, if you score your penalty and you have feelings of satisfaction, this is going to increase your trait sport confidence and your competitive orientation, which is going to increase your state sports confidence. If you miss your penalty, you're potentially going to decrease your trait sports confidence, you're going to decrease your competitive orientation, therefore directly going to decrease your state sports confidence. So that's me just talking about it without any information on the screen. I'm going to give you now the specific examples I want you to write down with descriptors. So sporting context, first of all, this is a skill to be undertaken, e.g. a penalty. When we're talking about trait sports confidence, we are talking about this innate predisposition to be confident, or this innate, stable, enduring, and consistent characteristics to be confident. For example, to be confident in a wide range of sports. You may be confident in football, you may be confident in tennis, you may be confident in hockey, you may be confident in a wide range of sports. You might be confident within your particular sport and a wide range of skills within that sport. For example, in football, taking free kicks, taking penalties, passing, shooting. So your trait sports confidence is innate predisposition to be confident. Then we have competitive orientation, i.e. your degree of competitiveness. For example, volunteering to take a penalty. Now these two directly impact on our state sports confidence. Our state sports confidence is simply the situation-specific confidence, e.g. when taking a penalty, you'll either be confident or you will not be confident, and that clearly depends on our trait sports confidence and competitive orientation. For example, if we have high trait sports confidence, high competitive orientation, we're going to have high state sports confidence, okay, situation-specific confidence. This in turn means that, or behavioural response, this leads to the competence of the execution of the skill. How well will the penalty be struck, or how well the penalty is executed in terms of the technique. So, if you have high trait sports confidence, high competitive orientation, high state sports confidence, the likelihood is you are going to be competent at taking the penalty. Your behavioural response will be you're scoring that penalty due to your technique. Finally, this subjective perceptions of outcomes, this leads to the perception of success. Please add to this. For example, if you score, you are going to feel satisfaction. If you miss, you are going to be disappointed. In turn, this perception of the success will have a direct correlation, a direct impact on your trait sports confidence and your competitive orientation. For example, if you score and you feel satisfaction, you're going to increase your trait sports confidence and your competitive orientation. If you miss, you're going to feel disappointed, dissatisfaction, you're going to decrease trait sports confidence, you're going to decrease competitive orientation. Okay, so that would be how you'd answer a question that might suggest, please explain Veely's model of sports confidence using sporting examples. You may get asked to explain Veely's model of sports confidence. That's it, without examples. You'd simply have to be like, okay, you have sporting context, this is the skill to be undertaken. You have trait sports confidence, the innate predisposition to be confident, as well as competitive orientation, degree of competitiveness, so on, down the whole process. You may get asked to analyse the subjective outcome. So we've just discussed that if you score, you're going to have feelings of satisfaction. If you miss, you're going to have feelings of dissatisfaction. So you may have to be asked to then discuss the positive or the effects of a positive subjective outcome. So If you score and you feel this satisfaction, what are the effects of that? Well, this model gives it away. You have arrows pointing to what's going to happen. So what happens is, for positive subjective outcome, your trait sports confidence is going to increase. Your competitive orientation, therefore, will increase. Because of that, your state sports confidence is going to increase because they directly impact on that. This means you're going to have an increase in self-efficacy. Just so you know, self-efficacy is pretty much the same as state sports confidence. This is just another theorist's way of saying it. Okay, so this is Bandora's way of saying state sports confidence. State sport confidence is Veely's way of saying it. Finally, all of these increases mean that you're going to have an increase in approach behaviour, e.g. you're going to want to take the penalty again because you are going to have this self-belief, you are going to be confident. However, conversely, we need to recognise that if we are not successful, we need to be aware of the effects of a negative subjective outcome. What is the effect of missing this penalty? So we missed the penalty and we have this feeling of disappointment. What is going to happen? We are going to have a decrease in trait sport confidence, a decrease in competitive orientation. This is going to lead to a decrease in state sports confidence, ultimately reducing our self-efficacy. Now, what this will do is this is going to increase avoidance behaviour. We are not going to want to take a penalty. For example, you're not going to want to take a penalty, you're going to want to avoid that situation. So that right there is Veely's model of sports confidence. Please make sure you have that drawn, make sure you have key questions, have all the information with regards to the explanation points, the descriptors, the examples, as well as the analyse points there. Thank you for listening.